In this video, we will see how an array can be declared. Now, before we use any programming construct, we need to declare it so that the compiler knows what to expect. For example, if you're using a variable, the first thing that you need to do is declare the variable. Similarly, if you have to use an array, the first thing that you need to do is declare the array. Now, the syntax for declaring an array is, let's try to understand the syntax first. The syntax is, you have to write the data type first, then you have to give a space, then you have to give the name of the array, you have to give the name of array, then you have to mention pair of box brackets. Within that, you have to give the size and then the semicolon. Now let's try to understand each of these parts. Now, what is the data type? The data type can be any of the built-in type, can be any built-in data type, or it can be a user-defined data type. A built-in data type includes int, char, float, etc. These are the built-in data types that are known in C. So it can be any of these, and a user-defined data type may be a structure, or it may be a union, and so on. So that is what you mean by the data type. It can be any built-in data type, or it can be a user-defined data type. Now, what about the name of the array? The name of the array must be a legal identifier. It must be a legal identifier, right? So we know the rules of identifiers, right? An identifier can only begin with an underscore or a letter of the alphabet. It can never begin with a digit. However, a digit may appear anywhere within the identifier. An identifier cannot be a keyword. An identifier cannot contain white space in between, right? So these are some of the rules that we need to keep in mind before we come up with a name of an array. And then we have to give this pair of box brackets. This pair of box brackets is an indicator to the compiler that whatever identifier we have written here refers to an array. And of course, we have to mention the semicolon. And remember, what about the size? The size of the array, right? So the size must always be an integer, definitely. It has to be an integer. It cannot be a real value. It must be positive. It must be positive. And also, the size can never be a variable. The size can never be a variable. Why? Because remember, arrays in C are static in nature. Arrays in C are static in nature. That means static in nature means the size of the array is defined beforehand. The size of the array is fixed beforehand. So you cannot change the size of an array. You cannot change the size of an array as and when you want. The size has to be fixed beforehand. Now what happens is, if I use a variable to indicate the size of the array, then the problem that arises is the variable can take on different values at different points in time. Then my array will cease to be static. My array will no longer remain static. It will become a dynamic array. See, what I'm trying to say is, let's say I have something like this. I have int n equal to 5. Let me take an example and try to explain this. Let's say I have a variable called n and its value is 5. And now let's say I'm declaring an array. The name of the array is ARR. See, if you follow the syntax, I'm writing the array declaration in accordance with this syntax. Look at the syntax. First comes the data type. So I've written the data type int. Then comes the name of the array, which is the legal identifier. Then I've written the legal identifier. ARR is a legal identifier. And then comes the size. Now, if I write the size to be n, what will be the problem? The problem that we'll face is, now currently the value of n is 5. That means my array has how many locations? My array has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations starting from index 0 till index 4, right? Now it has 5 locations, but let's say in the next line itself, I'm assigning a value of 10 to n. Now what will happen? The array is supposed to grow. The array currently has a value of 5. Now due to this statement, the array should become of size 10. Now this is against the nature of arrays in C. Arrays in C are static in nature. That is why this part will go against it, and that's why we cannot use a variable name in order to declare an array. So this size will always have to be an integer. It always has to be positive, and it always has to be either a numeric constant. It has to be either a numeric constant. What is a numeric constant? Any value like 5, 6, 7, any positive integer it can be, or it can be a symbolic constant. It can be a symbolic constant. A symbolic constant comes from your hash define statements. That means if I have something like this, hash define n 10, right? And then what I decide to do is I declare an array. Let's call that array ARR2. This is a legal identifier because the number can appear at the end. And then if I give n, this is perfectly valid. This is perfectly valid because the value of n will not change. Okay, so this was all about your array declaration. Now one more thing, when we declare an array, let's say I am declaring an array like this, int array, and then I say the size as 3. Now what will happen? Because of this statement, what happens is an array is created. Yes, an array is created. What is an array? An array is a collection of variables. So how many variables am I creating? Same as the size of the array. So I'm creating 3 variables. So 3 variables are created. So this is the array. Now all these 3 variables can be referred by this one name, which is the name of the array. And each of these variables are denoted by a box. So this is a box, this is a box, this is a box. 3 variables, 3 boxes, and these values, okay, these values are known as index values. These are known as index values. Using the index values, we will see in the upcoming videos how we can access the elements of the array. Okay, these are the elements. These boxes are my elements of the array. So using the index values, we will be accessing the elements of the array. And this is very important. If you have to perform operations on arrays, you need to access the elements, right? If I am going to perform any operation, let's say I want to find the sum of all the elements. Let's say I have an array which consists of 10 elements and I want to find the sum of all these 10 elements. Then of course I need to access those elements first. So in order to access the elements, what I need is I need the index values. So how will I use the index values along with the name of the array? Let's say I want to access this variable. I want to access this variable. Then I'll write, what is the name of the array? ARR. And what is the index value that I'm trying to access? I'm trying to access index value 1. So within box bracket, I will write 1. This is how I will access an array element. So I hope this helps. In the upcoming videos, we'll see a few examples on array declaration. Thank you.